protests being held in Westminster this morning over a landmark wildlife survey, which has found that 1 in 6 UK species is at risk of extinction. Let's bring in Chris Packham, environmentalist, who has, I think, organised it. Chris, am I right in saying that? What's the point? Tell us more.
Good morning, Kate. Yes, I've organised a little demonstration, peaceful, you'll be pleased to know. No glue, paint or powder down here today, but I'm joined by all of the conservation NGOs who are active in the UK because we share a grave concern that the State of Nature report, which was published yesterday, tells us in précis that our nature is in a terrible state. But we're not incapacitated. We have the ability, we know, to restore, repair and reinstate that nature. We just need a greater political will to make that happen, and that's why we've gathered peacefully outside Defra this morning.
OK. Do you think the government listens to you?
Well, it hasn't been listening up until now. We've had successive governments which has withdrawn funding from Defra, from Natural England, from National Resources Wales, those people that we entrust to look after our protected areas. We don't have a lot of protected areas. Only 11% of the UK is protected. Only 50% of that is in good condition, and that's where we need to change. But we also need changes when it comes to implementing things like the higher level agri-environment schemes. We know that they can work, but only 20% of our farmers are in those schemes. And given that 71% of our land surface in the UK is given over to farming, that's where we need to focus it. So we need more money for more subsidies so farmers can essentially farm wildlife more effectively, and it needs to be easier for those farmers to access those schemes. They shouldn't be waiting for money, running overdrafts to do so, and they should have the flexibility to implement them on their farms in a way that they know will work. So we need really systemic changes here, but at the end of this we need significant pledges from all of our principal political parties in their manifestos that they will introduce meaningful, robust, resilient, nature-friendly farming policies in, as I say, farming, forestry and fishing, and they have to be mandatory. We don't have time to wait any longer. We need everyone to be involved in nature restoration because it won't happen overnight.
Uncertain future for lots of species, including the turtle dove, hazel dormouse, lady slipper orchid, and the European eel as well. But others as well are facing that uncertain future that you've been talking about.
Yeah, there's a plethora of species. 16% of the species in the UK are now threatened with extinction. This is a nation of animal lovers. Look at the hordes of people I've got behind me. These people get up every single day. They're motivated and fueled by a deep-rooted love for nature and a desire to protect it. But we do need access to those resources. We need to make sure that our skills and expertise, all the techniques that we perfected to conserve nature, are able to be rolled out far more rapidly and far more broadly. We cannot do that on our own, despite all of the endeavours of all of these NGOs, all of these hard-working staff and volunteers and members. We can't do it. That's what the state of nature is telling us. We need committed government support. Now, the government last night put off their plans for, when it comes to biodiversity recovery for another 6 weeks. We're worried that they won't come through as robust as possible, and it may well be that we'll be taken to the streets on several more occasions before we get to that all-important next election. But what we're saying today to all of the parties is please take this seriously. We need a healthy environment. It supports us. Those farmers that I've been talking about, of course, are the people that are producing our food. Without that nature alongside it, our world will begin to fail and we will be in deep trouble. So this is not just about us and our love for bats, birds and bugs. This is about all of the people living in the UK needing a healthy landscape, a healthy world to live in.
OK. What do you make of the government's announcement that they're going to grant a certificate to the Rosebank oil field in the North Sea, and that also Labour wouldn't take that away if they were in power?
Well, it's not entirely a separate issue because obviously climate breakdown, climate changes are having a huge impact on our natural world as well, and they are precipitating some of the problems outlined in our State of Nature report. But agreeing to drill at Rosebank is a catastrophic decision. It's abject madness, described as such by the government's own Climate Change Committee, by the IPCC, by the head of the UN, who's described it as economic and moral madness. We need to keep fossil fuels in the ground, and we need to implement a transition to renewables as quickly as possible. And when they talk about energy security from that, essentially they're not telling the truth. That oil will largely belong to Norway and it'll be sold to the free market. It won't even be refined in the UK. Listen, They keep on about jobs in the oil industry. That's bad old business. We need bright new business, which is in renewables. That's where we need our investment, and that we have that capability to do that in the UK. And after all, at the end of the day, there's no jobs on a dead planet. So short-term political play games like they're doing at the moment are terrible. And Labour need to step up here. Saying that they'll honour these licences is not the way to get our vote. There's no doubt about that. They need more robust policies themselves when it comes to dealing with climate breakdown. And that starts with leaving fossil fuels in the ground.
We're going to be chatting about the spectacle bear, the Andean bear, in just a second. Have you got a thought on them?
Well, I had the great pleasure of meeting some of those on an occasion. It was a rescue project many, many years ago. I was out there with the Really Wild show. Enchanting creatures, but again, like so many animals across the world, just like those that we've been looking at in our own State of Nature report, we are impinging on their habitat. There are all sorts of threats that come there. Okay, I've said this, I think, to you before. We are one species on one planet with one big problem and one last chance to sort it out. We need to come together to make sure that that happens, and that means looking not just here at the UK and the state of our nature, but the state of nature all over the world.
OK. Good luck, Chris. It's always great to talk to you. Thanks very much.
Thank you.